Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sake Revolution. This is America's first sake podcast, and I am your host, John Puma from the Sake Notes, also the administrator at the Internet Sake Discord, and the guy who runs the r/sake community over at Reddit.
And I'm your host, Timothy Sullivan. I'm a sake samurai, I'm a sake educator, as well as the founder of the Urban Sake website. And every week, John and I will be here tasting and chatting about all things sake, and doing our best to make it fun and easy to understand.
So, Tim, how have you been? And before we get too far into that, I noticed we're not alone again.
Yes, we have another exciting interview for today. I'm doing well, John. Hope you are too.
I am.
Awesome. I am so excited to introduce you to our guest for this week. We have a friend visiting us from Washington, D.C. Her name is Reiko Hirai. And she is the owner and operator of DC Sake, an online sake seller in DC. And I am so excited to welcome her to the show and talk sake today. So Reiko, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. Good to see you.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So you're selling sake down in DC, which is a kind of, in my mind, I always think of, for sake, I always think of DC as kind of an emerging market. And I always thought that like, oh, this is a place that's primed for some sake discoveries. But before we get into kind of the DC sake thing, let's talk a little bit more about how you got into sake. What led you to this moment?
Yeah, so I actually have been living in DC for more than 20-something years.
Wow. 20-something years.
I'm like a DCian, Washingtonian almost.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I started my business back in 2006. I have another business that I do. I run an event and project management company.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that for a while, since 2006. And one of the things that we do is to promote the Japanese content or work with the Japan-related organizations like Embassy of Japan or National Cherry Blossom Festival, Japan American Society, all that Japan organizations in DC. And so around 2015, I started to get a lot of requests from the embassy trying to promote the Japanese sake, and I know that Japan was really into trying to export the sake starting early, I think, 2000s, and it was starting to grow. So in Washington, D.C., they were looking for the event production company who can help put together the sake events, and I raised my hand. And so I started to work on the sake promotion with them. And back then, we did a lot of sake tasting events in different venues, Smithsonian's and things. And I was really, I wasn't a sake drinker myself, but I kind of got to learn about the sake through these events. And then I really kind of enjoyed seeing the people who came to sake events and people were tasting the sake. And they were really reacting it very surprisingly, like, oh, this is so good, And the next thing people start asking, this is so good, where can I get it? And that was a golden question, right? And back then, like John said, the DC was back then still like emerging area in terms of sake. We had some sakes, of course, at the restaurants, but there was really no place that people could go and buy. And so when we were promoting sake at these events, they bring very specific sake, of course. But when they ask where can they get it, that specific sake, we had no idea who had that sake at that time, which restaurant or what shop or anything like that. So the only thing that we were able to say was, oh, sorry, it's not available yet. And it was like that for a while. And that really kind of started to bother me. So I decided to take that into my own hands.
Nice.
business.
So you got into sake by way of promoting sake. That's interesting. I think that's a reversal from what we usually see, right, Tim?
Yeah. So doing sake events turned you on to sake as a product. And then you started your own business selling sake. Can you tell us a little bit about how your company it's called DC Sake Co. Can you tell us how that evolved and how that developed and what's happening right now with your sake company online?
Yeah, so DC Sake Co. Actually, I call it a DC Sake Co. with the O with the little bar, because DC Sake Co.'s Co actually stands for community, collaborations, and connections. Also in kanji, in Japanese kanji, sake is a sake, and ko is like koryu. It's more like a exchange.
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese kanji character using that. So we're all about collaborating and, creating the community of sake loving community here in DC. So my idea originally, when I started to think about, okay, maybe, this is so frustrating that there's no place to buy sake. Maybe I should open up a sake shop myself. And I started to look around Washington, D.C. To find the possible real estate. I can open the sake shop. But when you calculate the rent versus bottles that I need to sell, I knew DC was warming up to sake, but not that much yet, So I started to, at one point I had that, around 2016, I really kind of tried to think about that, but then I stopped that idea because of the finance. But then around 2019, I started to rethink because of the online shop.
Right. Yeah. I think that a lot of things sound like really great ideas until you see the cost associated with them. And it's like, well, what else can we do? Then you discovered the possibilities of online.
Yeah. So possibility of online. And then I kind of roughly calculated myself to say, okay, so if I don't sell a bottle of sake the whole through year, how much am I going to lose? Right. And then if I calculated for 3 years, like, is this something that I can get into? I have no idea about the internet e-commerce business or any. I'm an event person. I've never ran the e-commerce. So I calculated the number and I decided that, if I had to stop losing completely, like not, sell sake and have to stop. And if I lose this much, it was worth it for me, So I decided to give it a chance. But then I like the online style right now because it's not married to the one location, but it's very fluid and bring myself to different ways to connect with people. Instead of them coming to my shop, I go to them. So I'm kind of really enjoying starting these collaborations.
That's great. And I trust you have been able to sell at least some sake in a year.
Have you sold at least one bottle?
At least one bottle. All right. So it's all coming up roses.
I got lucky actually because I opened my business 2020 in June, which was in the middle of the pandemic.
Right. I do think that the pandemic was, pardon the term, good for online retailers. Like generally speaking, because people couldn't go out to stores or in some cases just didn't, felt unsafe doing so. And having stuff come to their home became a much more accepted way of doing things. So I think it was really big for e-commerce. So you might have come in at just like the right time for that.
I didn't plan that way, but yes.
So you talked about establishing your online sake retail business during the pandemic. How has it been going? You calculated if I only sell one bottle, can I make this work? And what has happened in the last 2 to 3 years? Has it been a success in your eyes? Has it been big challenges coming your way? What's happened with your online business?
No, there's always a challenge and everything too. But so far we are growing little by little. We have I can now say that we are definitely growing a DC sake love community. But first 2 years was really kind of trying to get handle of this online
Yeah.
business. And during the pandemic, I delivered the sake myself.
Oh my. That's dedication right there.
Yeah, all by myself. And, now I have a team of 8 or part-times, but, we have a delivery person, and storage the person who helps packing, and online, manage the online, the newsletter. I mean, there's many people who support us, with the business. And so this year we're celebrating 3 year in June. And this year is the first time that we actually have a plan for the year where, we have anchor event every season, spring, summer, fall, and winter. And then we're going to start monthly sake tasting featuring the monthly trio that we always put together. So we're collaborating with the local shop where they can accommodate us to do the tasting. And so being an online shop, we're being able to collaborate with so many different local businesses in DC where we're growing the community together.
Nice. So what makes the DC market unique or special?
I think for me, I mean, I haven't seen all the markets yet, but obviously New York has so many restaurants and so many selections of sake. There's amazing sake bars, multiple sake bars in New York, where in DC, we don't have that sort of a selections or that many sake specialized bars or anything. But people are definitely getting more interested, and it was just recent that DC became a Michelin city. And as soon as that Michelin city hit, so many chefs start to get interested in different, not just the beverages, but the ingredients and things like that. And sake had a little slow start, but now I feel like a lot of the chefs are really, really into trying to pair the sake with their food. So this spring, as a sake shop owner, they automatically think I'm like the specialist. Well, myself in a way, but I help chefs with the basics of the sake so we can get the sake into the consumer's hand from different parts. So DC is very, very exciting that way, that it's still in a growing market.
Nice. So, as is the custom here on our show here, we do like to drink some sake with our guests. And this is absolutely no exception. And today we're going to be sipping on Fukucho Moon on the Water. Now, that was selected by you, Reiko, and I want to know what made you pick this one?
Yeah, of course, it's an International Women's Month this month. And as you probably know, Fukucho is from Imada Shuzo. Miho Imada-san is the brew master and the president of the brewery. I had her sake in my selection, but I didn't really had a chance to really learn about her until she was selected, I think, for the BBC's 100 Women in 2020. And she was selected because she's saving the old traditional industry, but at the same time, bringing all that innovative things and keep challenging to keep the community growing. And that really sort of inspired me, her energy. And so I wanted to share this sake with you to show the respect for her today.
That's great.
That's awesome. John, do you want to give us the stats for the Fukucho Moon on the Water?
Of course I would. So yes, as we mentioned, this is the Fukucho Moon on the Water. It is from Imada Shuzo Honten over in one of my favorite prefectures, Hiroshima. And this is using Hatan Nishiki, which is a local rice, and Yamada Nishiki, milled down to 55% of their original size. The sake meter value is a +3, so we're looking at touch dry. Acidity is 1.4, so that's not going to be getting in the way too much. And the alcohol percentage is 16.5. Good stuff.
And they're selling this as a Junmai Ginjo grade sake. Reiko, do you have any experiences serving this sake or any stories about this sake from past events?
Yeah, so we also do a home sort of we bring the sake to customers' home for the private event.
Mhm.
I often choose this sake just to show the diversity of the industry that's happening in Japan. Whenever we have the female guests in the crowd, whenever I talk about her, she gets the applaud. Oda-san can't hear it, but I hear it for her. So people really love it. It's an opportunity for everyone to learn about the regions and, so I really enjoy showing this sake.
Great. And it
All
happens to
right.
be fabulous sake as well. That makes it easy to show off to people.
All right. Well, let's get this in the glass, shall we? Yeah. All right. So I have the Fukucho, known as Moon on the Water Junmai Ginjo. I've got this in the glass.
Mm-hmm.
Has just a hint of yellow color to it, I think. Just the slightest hint of a straw color.
Just a hair. It is, almost completely clear though.
They don't charcoal.
No,
really?
not charcoal filtered. Oh, great.
Ah.
Okay. That's really good to know. Thanks, Reiko. Let's give it a smell.
Oh.
What do you think, Reiko-san?
Well, this is so beautiful. It's so like ripe fruits, almost like a melon. This is a beautiful ginjo aroma.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Reiko, I think you're right on the money there. This is like a classic ginjo aroma. And if you're doing seminars in people's homes or private lectures to show people what a true ginjo aroma is like, I think this is a great example of that.
Yeah. That's exactly why I choose this sake. Also to talk about the ginjo. As soon as you open the bottle, that aroma hits it way. So, and then so I put the bottle towards customers' nose and open, and they're like, ooh,
Yeah. I think this would be a wonderful, like with this aroma, it's a really good, like get somebody in the door with sake type of sake.
All right. Well, let's give it a taste.
That's just a feel good sake. You know?
Are you feeling good, Josh?
I'm feeling good. I feel great about this. This is lovely.
Has a long finish.
So there's a little bit of richness on the palate. It has a little bit of a coating characteristic to it. And for me, there's a hint of sweetness. As John mentioned, the SMV is +3, which is kind of in the neutral zone.
A little bit, yeah.
It's SMV +3, which is kind of in the neutral area. And I find that allows a little bit of sweetness to come through. And it's not super dry on the finish. It has that more lingering wine-like finish, like you said, Reiko. And it's got overall great balance.
I think the fruit that we get in the nose comes in a lot at the front of this sip. And then that richness kind of takes over and guides you through the rest of your tasting. It's really lovely.
Now, Reiko, you're originally from Japan and you're from Kyoto, is that right?
Yes, I am. I am a Kyoto woman.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you were to pair this sake with some food, maybe some Japanese food, what type of pairing ideas do you have for the Fukucho, Moon on the Water?
So, okay, because, Hiroshima is famous for oyster.
Yeah.
That's like almost immediate, obviously. But I also enjoyed it with the almond chocolate.
Ooh, okay. Now you're speaking my language. That sounds exciting.
Was really surprisingly, it's very different from oyster. I really, really enjoyed that pairing. That was Valentine's time. But
Valentine's. So that would play up the sweetness a little bit if you paired it with chocolate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that sounds good.
So, Reiko, you mentioned that you're an event planner in DC and you've got
Yes.
this sake business on the side. So, are there any sake events coming up that we should know about for the DC area?
Yes, thank you so much for asking. How timely. So in Washington, one of the things that I have been involved doing was being part of the National Cherry Blossom Festival. And the whole time that I was involved with the Cherry Blossom Festival, I always wondered why there was no event that specifically specializes in sake that would happen every year.
Mhm.
For me, cherry blossoms and sake was a natural fit, but as an event, it was so hard to make it happen.
Hmm.
Now that I have a business myself in the industry, I kind of know why it didn't, but then it made me realize maybe I have to be the one to start this tradition. I
Hmm.
like to take things on to myself. So this year, we're starting this spring sake festival in Washington, D.C. It's going to be on the April 6th at the Zena Hotel, which is in the very center of Washington, D.C. And we are starting this, hopefully, to start this new tradition where people look forward to.
That's
Mm.
awesome. And it makes a lot of sense because I think the Cherry Blossom Festival in DC is one of the most well-known Japanese events in the country. It's really
Mm.
famous and it goes on for a whole month in DC, and the cherry blossoms are so beautiful. And in Japan, people drink sake under the cherry blossoms every year. So you're so right. It goes hand in hand and it should be
Yeah.
happening. But I think with sake distribution, as you know, there's a lot of logistical challenges to getting sake out to the people. So this is so exciting. Where can people learn more about it if they want to visit DC, or if they're in DC and they want to attend in April? Where can they learn more?
Yeah, so the best way is to follow us on the social media or visit our website. It's at dcsake.com, easy. And if you go to the event tab, you will see about the event. We currently have about 10 vendors
Mhm.
signed up to present their sake, which is so exciting. And I am just in awe that this is like a very first event that we're doing in the springtime. And it's the first time that we actually, reached out to the vendors to join us. And I really wasn't sure how many of them could actually join, but this number really I outwent my expectation. And so my pressure is definitely on right now to make sure I sell the tickets, but I don't think we have any problem. But right now we have about 70 plus different kinds of sake on display.
Mhm.
We will have from the 5:30 to 6:30, we're going to have a VIP tasting. It's going to be for a very small group, like 25 people. And then after that, from 6:30 to 9:30, we're going to open up the floor where people can walk around and taste the sake. And then when people go around the vendors, they will have a handbook
Mhm.
where they can mark your favorite sake. And we are going to be carrying all 70 sake on our website throughout the month of April, so people can actually purchase those sake. And me, as a person who loves sake and also loves cherry blossom in DC, I'm going to donate part of the sales from that month of April through these sake events to the Adopt the Tree Fund,
Mm.
where they take care of the cherry blossom trees all throughout the year, so we can keep enjoying this cherry blossom in DC.
That's lovely. That's really good. I don't know about you, Tim, but I love when there's like local sake events like that. Like, like
Mm.
San Francisco has theirs. We're a little spoiled here in New York. A lot of events here. So, having this thing taking place in DC. Seems like it's going to be a lot of fun for the locals or people, a couple of states away. Amtrak goes to DC. You guys can make it down there.
It's not that far.
It's not that far.
And Reiko, I just love the idea that you were hoping for this annual springtime cherry blossom sake event. It wasn't happening. And you said, okay, I have to do it. And sake wasn't being distributed well. And you said, well, maybe if I start a business, I have to do it. So I love this attitude you have, this can-do attitude. Yes. I love it.
It's very much like be the change you want to see in the sake world.
I saw the quote from Imada-san, if you find a job that it's worthy of your life, just really like immerse yourself in it and then treat that job with the respect, and then you'll be on the way to achieve the goals.
Now, Reiko, before we let you go, I want to mention one more thing. You recently won a prestigious award in DC, didn't you? Can you tell us about that? That's such an exciting thing.
Yeah, so I won this award, John and Hiroko Malott Leadership Award, that was presented by Japan America Society. And they choose this person, organization and individual who dedicate themselves to bringing the US and Japan cultures together. And yeah, so I was really honored but surprised that they chose me, but that really gave me an opportunity to really be assured and be proud of what I do.
That's amazing.
Well, it sounds like that was very well deserved. You're doing so much good work for sake in DC. Now, before we go, we want to give you a chance to let our listeners know how they can reach you, how they can get in touch with you, maybe your website or your socials. So how can people learn more about what you do?
Yes. So the best way is to sign up on our newsletter. It doesn't matter if you're in DC or not. You probably want one of these days that you might visit DC. So please get on our newsletter. You can sign up from our website, dcsake.com. Or we are also very active on our social media, Instagram at DC Sake, Facebook at DC Sake, and Twitter at DC_Sake.
Couldn't get the DC Sake for that one, huh? we have a similar thing with Sake Revolution Pod in some places.
So close.
Almost.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Reiko, this is so much fun talking to you. Congratulations on all you've achieved in the last few years with making sake happen in DC. And I know for sure that I'm coming out to your event in April, so I will be there, and I encourage all our listeners to make it to DC if you can.
Wow. So wait a minute. If I go down to DC, I get to meet Sake Revolution's Timothy Sullivan?
Yes, in person.
In person. Yeah. Wow.
All right, Reiko, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
You got it. All right. Well, John, great to taste with you. I want to thank our listeners so much for tuning in. Thanks for joining us every week here on Sake Revolution. A special hello, hi, and another thank you to our patrons. If you would like to learn more about supporting Sake Revolution, the best way to do that is to join us as a patron. To learn more, visit patreon.com/sakerevolution.
And if you would like to get a little bit more out of your Sake Revolution listen, you can check out the show notes over at sakerevolution.com. There are notes about the sakes that we taste, the guests that we have on, all the little details that you might have missed while you were listening. Also, a written transcript that is painstakingly put together by Timothy.
And if you'd like to get in touch with us, the best way to reach us is by email. You can contact us at feedback@sakerevolution.com. We would love to hear your feedback and any show ideas you have. Please reach out to us.
Well, on that note, I think it's time that we raise a glass. We all remember to keep drinking sake and kanpai!